Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with Suzy Sapir, founder of Hippy Pilgrim and the Hippy Pilgrim Helpline. Welcome to Taste Buds, Suzy.
Thank you, Deborah. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, I am excited to talk to you. We are based in LA, as you know, and we're recording January 10th. The fires are still raging, and people don't know. The evacuated ones don't know when they're going to be able to go home or even if they're able to go home.
Right.
And I think even though it's not top of mind, people still need to eat. And I think it's an important conversation that we have about what to do about the food.
And this is, when I started this helpline in October, I had no idea the types of requests that would come in of what people were looking for information. And they've been so diverse. And the wildfires is just one more example of what to, when you least expect it and how it actually affects your eating and the way your family's going to eat. It's like what you said earlier. It's the last thing you may think of, but the first thing when it happens.
When you're doing a car trip, you prepare, but when you have to dart out of the house, you grab your prized possessions.
Exactly. No one's thinking of grabbing a crock pot or a cooler or a can opener. They're grabbing, what means the most to the family and what is going, these generational items that they just don't want to lose. And honestly, even here I am a, meal planning expert. It would be one of the last things I was thinking of. I'd want to be grabbing my photo albums over pots and pans. So I 100% get it where some families may have absolutely nothing.
I do have to mention the food community in LA has been really great. I mean,
Yeah.
there are chefs and restaurateurs all over town preparing and distributing meals.
Mhm.
They're at the evacuation centers, different meeting points, rallying points throughout
Yes.
these different communities. But that's not always an option.
Mhm. I love foodies because in a time of crisis, we just want to feed people because it's the way we show love to other people. And that would be my first response. How can I, feed people that need food right now? And I can only imagine the vibrancy and how uplifting the LA food community must be right now, at least stepping up in all the ways they can to feed whoever they can, anyone in need. It doesn't matter at this point.
I saw on the news last night this woman filled her car with chicken soup
Mm.
and then went to one of the evacuation centers because we know chicken soup is love.
Absolutely. I have goosebumps kind of when you're saying that because it makes me think of, I'm kind of an old soul and I think, we all have a purpose. We all want to help in some way and we all have special talents and gifts that we can lend.
And we know feeding is a very Jewish thing, but it
Yep.
is also a very people oriented thing.
Yes. Yes.
And
And, there are you know, people take for granted sometimes the essence of the kitchen and the meaning behind this space. And I always tell people, this space should be associated with absolute joy, never resent the privilege to prepare a meal in your kitchen and share it with those you love. And it's sometimes in moments like these where you're pooling resources to share these meals. And here's you're eating a bowl of chicken soup from a complete stranger amongst maybe a group of strangers or even family. And you're appreciating in that moment just how important it is to connect over food and how food actually flows us down and allows us to appreciate the people, places, and things in our lives over that meal. And we have to do it 3 times a day. And now that the resources are even limited, I see, I can just imagine that feeling of, even we get a lot of hurricanes here. We lose power for long stretches of time. And nothing tastes so good as that first meal that you make in that crisis or in that moment. And I just find it fosters true appreciation for the family meal, the group meal, communal breaking bread together, is really what I'm trying to say.
You made a really good point because ideally, when you eat, you slow down.
Yes.
You take a breath,
Mhm.
and as you're adding nutrients to yourself,
Mhm.
even though you're dealing with trauma, it gives your body a second to at
Mhm.
least recoup a little bit.
Just stop. Where feeding yourself actually becomes a gift in that moment. Some people aren't capable of slowing down and their brain is, what can I do next? And you have those that are the helpers that are just constantly trying to think, what can I be doing now? And, I think it comes down to self care in these moments and, making sure, in addition to people taking care of their mental health with the stress that something like this would cause, but actually doing your best to give your body the nutrients that it needs during such a stressful time is going to give people the stamina to be able to face this long term challenge. This just isn't a one and done solution. Los Angeles and that your community will never be the same. It will take a lengthy period of time to rebuild. And you don't want people suffering from a mental health perspective or even a physical perspective that they let their physical health go during this extended period of time.
And the best way to take care of yourself is to eat.
Yes. Yes.
So, how do we do that?
So, how we cook is going to depend on where we're cooking. But when I kind of sat with this topic and thought, if it were me, what would be the first gizmos and gadgets I acquire no matter where I'm at? Because somewhere will have power. And for me, this is where those annoying appliances you stored in your kitchen at one point that you don't want, you're hiding them everywhere, but the crock pot, the air fryer, a basic can opener to be able to open cans, a strainer just so that you're going to be eating a lot of either pasta, rice, or have to soak noodles. So a basic strainer. But any of those electronic devices that you could just plug in a teapot. So you have hot water for not only rice or pasta, but for tea and coffee that you may have to, have a little instant setup station. But just having, I've got mine right next to me right now. But having that ability just to be able to heat water is a luxury and a privilege in a situation like that. And honestly, a crock pot and an air fryer are very compact, countertop appliances. Even if you're staying with a family, you could be staying with a family of six that has a small kitchen. They're already using the oven. You don't want to get into each other's space too much, but plugging in a crock pot and throwing a few ingredients into it to make a meal for many is a perfect solution. Or I can actually roast a whole chicken in an air fryer. It takes 90 minutes and you can have a fresh chicken that was cooked in 90 minutes on the stovetop. No one was in each other's way while that was cooking. And that's the benefit to a lot of, a rice cooker, any of these multi-purpose appliances, we take them for granted in the moment and are, they're sitting on the counter collecting dust. And in moments like these, those are the best appliances to have on hand because you can really do anything in them, Some you can sear it and then use the crock pot or braising function, but, an air fryer to me would be my first go-to, hands down.
I use my air fryer, I think, every day.
Yep.
I use my Instant Pot several times a week. I'm much
Yeah.
better in a fast cooker than a
Mhm.
slow cooker,
Yep.
but you're absolutely right. When you have that's basically a kitchen.
Yes. Yep. It's funny, when I, first started working in television, I had to fly out to your neck of the woods, and, um, I had to I was, auditioning for a food expert position, and I was like, "How do I make myself different in this interview?" And I actually traveled with a plug-in skillet, a strainer, the whole china, I brought some china from home and brought it and made a meal in a hotel room, a gourmet meal that I then took to the meeting with the executives at Warner Brothers and then finished it off right in front of them. And they're like, "How the hell did you pull that off in a hotel room?" You'd be shocked. just how much you can pull off. And I did get the job, which was exciting. But that whole meal, and it was a beautiful um, chicken, tomatoes, spinach, pasta meal loaded with veggies, protein, starch. And I did that in a hotel in the city of LA. And, it was a meal for four and done completely using a strainer and a plug-in skillet. Made that entire meal from start to finish, from boiling the pasta in it to cooking the chicken. Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very impressive. So if you find yourself in an Airbnb or in a hotel room or even staying with people,
Mhm.
these are the appliances and tools that are
Yes.
easy and likely not too terribly expensive if you need to start rebuilding your kitchen.
And this is a great time. A lot of thrift stores have these plug-in appliances that people have donated to upgrade and get a nicer version. And rather than purchasing new, you could go to a Goodwill, which I'm sure is gladly accepting people to come in and use some of these. But these are things someone might not think of to look for in a, thrift type of environment, but they have tons of crock pots. They're older editions, but those are some of the best. Little prep tools, little hand tools, just a little, rice cooker. Those you can find plentiful, inexpensively, and secondhand.
I'm in LA, so obviously we're focusing on LA.
Yep.
But if you travel,
Mhm.
these are also things that you can keep in mind. So it's not just
Absolutely.
for us. This is relevant no matter where you are or what sort of situation you find
Yes.
yourself in.
Yep. Just a traveling kitchen. I was thinking like when my kids were, driving, you encourage them to have that, emergency box in their truck or their car if they were ever to break down or get lost on a hiking trail or whatnot. They had their water, they have their food, you almost have to think the same way. And, what would your little bucket look like of your essentials based on how you roll in the kitchen? And that's kind of what you'd be shopping for in that moment. And some people may have to do it hypothetically from a hotel room. What do we need to go grab? And build that little, portable traveling kitchen so that they're not eating takeout every night. And, some folks may have a very low budget to work with that have been displaced. So these little appliances that are generally low cost can help them feed their family beyond this crisis, but absolutely in that triage moment, feed them and feed them well.
Great. We've got the tools. Now what?
Mhm. So now you have to decide, you have to be strategic about what food you choose to have with you. So if you're in a hotel room, let's use a worst case scenario where someone just has a hotel room or, a very limited space. I'm thinking, what can I get that's shelf stable, and that isn't going to require refrigeration or too much refrigeration in the moment? So, luckily, dairy is available in shelf stable containers. So, you could have whole milk readily available. You could have, even this is, those moments where people never buy it in the grocery store, but, you know, um, freeze dried powdered milk that you simply add water to. Requires no refrigeration. It's lightweight. It's portable. You could put it in Ziploc baggies. But in rough times, these are those sacrifices we have to make in the moment, but both work because they're shelf stable. So you can get that protein, in your family or whatnot. This is where those little pouches of convenience rices and noodles that are pre cooked, that, you're just buying these single serve pouches to A, ration things out, but B, you're not making a big pot that may go to waste because now you don't have Tupperware to store it in, type of scenario. Canned meat at this point, folks that may never have bought canned tuna, canned chicken, canned salmon, any of those canned proteins where you can actually get that nice, excellent protein in your body, but in a shelf stable way in small quantities and portable, which is super, super helpful. And the same goes for canned vegetables. If you don't have access to a fridge or freezer, canned vegetables, are a great way to go. They're shelf stable. They may not contain as many nutrients as fresh because of the high heat they're exposed to, but you're getting vegetables and trying to maintain the same type of meals you would have made at home. And I think that would offer some comfort too to try and replicate some things so that even though your lives are 100% disrupted in one way, that mealtime is you're trying to somewhat emulate it in unconventional circumstances. Um, I like to simplify for families and think instead of thinking, what meal am I going to cook all these people now? Don't think in terms of a meal, think in terms of food groups. What can you feed them that contain protein? What can you feed them that can is a vegetable? And what types of grains or starches can you acquire that will be relatively easy and shelf stable? So here's where the instant mashed potatoes that we all, might not like on a day to day, but in a case like this, all you need is that, teapot to boil some water, add it to those potato flakes, and you can have, quick mashed potatoes in 5 minutes for someone rather than, you don't have the tools to peel it, boil it, do all of that. Um, in terms of, food and food safety, it's best to buy the actual whole food. So it will stay longer if you buy whole apples and don't pre-cut them for your family. Just leave the apples whole so it will stay and be able to stay longer. And that's why, when you see at buffets at hotels, they have apples, bananas, oranges, those grab and go that already have that peel or coating that is going to keep them fresh for an extended period of time. So you don't want to pre-chop any fruits, pre-chop any vegetables, because those would have to be consumed within 4 hours, technically, if you didn't have refrigeration. And you could have food safety issues at that point. But definitely go for, if you're buying tomatoes, whole tomatoes is a great thing to have on hand in an environment because you can have a fresh food, but it can be saved for later because you haven't cut it or, sliced it in any way. Same thing with carrots. Don't buy them in the little baby size. Buy them in, so that you just have a whole carrot and it will keep a little bit longer in those circumstances.
Really great tips. And before you tell us what to do with these ingredients,
Yep.
how did you become you? I mean, and what is your background?
I was raised by we grew up dirt poor. And I had two, very hardworking parents. And we, by necessity, gardened. My mom had a massive backyard garden. So before farm to table was in vogue, that's what we did out of necessity. And I'm one of four. We all had a job related to the kitchen. So back then, kids weren't there to be shuffled off to activities. They were there to be an active member of the family. And we each had a role in the kitchen. I always peeled the corn. It was always my job to peel the corn. We rotated who set the table, those types of things. So I enjoyed family meals because we didn't go out to eat. We didn't have the means. So I kind of learned this level of resourcefulness that folks may need now by necessity as a kid. And I just remember always feeling joy in my kitchen, no matter what was being served. I fell in love with the atmosphere. Later went on to work in, television. So I actually worked in TV news in Boston. I worked as an assignment editor, went to college for television. And once I kind of was in the news sector, I thought, I'm a little more creative. And how can I combine television with a passion or creative outlet of mine? And this was kind of before Food Network even was a network. And I had a local little cable company. So I started, a town over, I started a local cable cooking show and thought, I'm just going to show people how I roll in the kitchen. That landed me on Food Network season one of Next Food Network Star. I was the only home cook without a professional background on that pilot season, placed fourth, and went on to enjoy an incredible career in food TV, being hired by brands, family brands that struggle with the same stuff every day. It just led to these wonderful opportunities. And then I finally created my own food brand which was Hippy Pilgrim. And that, started out as a farm to table garlic salt company. And it turned into, I'm going into my 12th year of business. And, people undervalue the importance of really good quality handmade seasonings. And, that's how that's what I bring to the table now. And now I'm creating, programming for my own brand and creating content for my own brand. I've been exposed to so many different um, people and types of people and changing incomes. And I, I just have learned through this, 20 plus career of, I just have a natural ability of listening to the problem and finding a quick, easy solution because that's how I grew up. That's how I raised my kids. And I just kind of find it easy and I make it attainable for people without them feeling like they need all this skill to pull off these meals to either feed their family in a regular time or stepping up in a horrific time like what's happening in LA right now and having to now feed the family in a very different way without all the convenience.
That's awesome. We have the tools, we have the shelf stable food.
Yep.
What are some easy things to make with it?
So it's funny. I like to work with, you start with the simple ingredients. So usually I kind of start with what's the starch, because that's going to determine if we need a sauce, if we need this, if we need that. So say you're working with pasta. Say you've bought, if you've got pasta, you've got some rice, and maybe I love to have, and if you're buying pasta, a great tip in a time like this would be to get angel hair, something that cooks very quickly. You don't want, very dry pasta that's going to take 11 to 15 minutes to cook when everybody's hungry and already, suffering displacement, but very quick cook grains. Those could be, um, angel hair pasta, pastina, rice noodles that all you have to do is soak in hot water. You don't even have to boil them. Vermicelli noodles. Those are very, very thin noodles. Um, Quinoa, which doesn't take long, instant rice, which will only take you 5 minutes, in hot water, stuffing, which is again very quick, easy. You're just submerging those flavored breadcrumbs. So think that, quick starch first and think, what's the quickest way I can pull it off within these limited parameters. So think very quick cooking pasta. If you get fresh pasta and you do have the ability for refrigeration, fresh pasta will cook in, 2 to 3 minutes in hot water. So that's another great option if you have the luxury of a cooler or a small mini fridge in the hotel that you're staying at.
You've picked your starch.
Mhm.
Now what?
Now you'd want to focus on what protein. And again, like the starch, you want to find something that's quick cooking, like salmon, if you love that type of seafood. Or if you're buying chicken, you can buy chicken that's already been pre-cooked in strips and or chunked. And this is where some of those convenience products in the store we may never buy on the regular are going to come in really handy at this point. And again, there's a lot of protein that comes in cans, whether it's tuna, whether it's chicken, whether it's canned turkey. Might not be 100% ideal, but at least you're getting that necessary protein you need to fuel your body during this stressful time. And if you then have this meat, this protein, and even beans, another underlooked shelf stable protein rich product that would be wonderful in a time like that, whether it's chickpeas or, any type of white bean, any type of bean, refried bean would be perfect in a situation like this because they're all shelf stable, which is great. And then ask yourself, in a rough situation, what would pull this all together? Sometimes it comes in the form of a sauce, a ready made sauce that all you have to do is heat in the microwave of your hotel space or wherever you're staying. So, I'd recommend having a marinara on hand if you're going the Italian route. There's so many different, pre jarred sauces or salsas or, these jarred condiments that may go underlooked that might just be what you need to pull that together. It's almost you're going to curate a, time efficient, space efficient pantry in whatever space that you're in. And I always seem to grab a funky salsa that has a lot going on in it, maybe some corn, maybe some black beans so that it adds that little extra something something, a unique sauce that, there could even be I've found some lovely, pumpkin cream sauces that you can buy in a jar. So it's a great way for you to actually try new products on the shelves and maybe discover, smaller local makers that you never would have considered before. And tying in, what would go, how can I get vegetables and fruit in the easiest possible way? And again, that may come down to canned vegetables at this time, or if you have a small fridge, nutrient dense meals that are or vegetables that are lightweight, you're looking at baby spinach. Any of these dark leafy greens, those can be both sauteed or stored, and then you can wilt them down after in any type of skillet situation. You could add those to a homemade soup you did in a crock pot, throwing in spinach just to get those extra nutrients into your family. This is where finding pre-prepped produce at the grocery store, like zucchini noodles that are already made, you don't have to do anything. And that's just going to take, a quick saute in the, warm pasta that you've added to that skillet as well. So it's going to require some creativity in the crossover, but luckily there are so many great products on the shelves in the stores that you will find one sauce that will serve as the inspiration for the rest of the meal. You might find a canned, coconut curry peanut sauce. Then you can say to yourself, ooh, that might go really well with this bag of instant jasmine rice that all I have to do is microwave it for 90 seconds. And then you could have a little plug-in skillet that you simply saute some, you grab a couple peppers and onions at the grocery store, and all you're really cooking technically is sauteing some peppers and onions, serving it over that microwave rice, and then pouring this delicious coconut curry sauce over. And you didn't technically cook this meal, you assembled it, heated it, but yet got the same end result. So, the family was fed in a creative, interesting, fun way through the use of convenience based grocery store products that are there when you need them.
This is great. And I can see there are so many different directions you can take it by being creative when you've got that base of knowledge. It's mixing and matching.
Yes, and even people underlook, dried fruit will stay fresher longer than the fresh fruit if you don't finish it, and a lot may go to waste. And this is probably, this is one of those times you don't want an ounce of food to go to waste because, who knows the financial impact on a family that they're going to face after, the recovery portion of all of this. So fruit in a dried form is really wonderful and a great sweet, snack for the kids or just to get that sweet tooth. Um, Freeze dried fruit is an excellent option because that's also very lightweight. So it's not taking up a lot of weight that you're lugging that around. And freeze dried fruit can be eaten as is. Kids, view it as candy. It's kind of more fun to eat, or it can be reconstituted in water and they can treat it as a, fresh fruit again at that point. But anything that comes in a freeze dried form is an excellent thing to have on hand as well. Also, something as simple, a simple protein, you might not even someone could be under so much stress that they couldn't even stomach a meal through this level of stress, but yet they have to be fed, they have to be hydrated. So even simple proteins like pistachios, almonds, cashews, high in protein, has that nice fat content as well. Those that are vegetarians, that's a great way to get their protein in that you could add as a, you know, technically a meat to a rice instead of using beef or chicken. Um, Meats like, how you can get like the shaved steak at the store. That is a very quick cooking form of beef. So you're getting pure steak in a quick shaved form that will cook in a plug-in skillet very quickly. We talked about those peppers and onions from the Thai meal earlier. You can make extra and throw those in a sub roll right in a hotel room. And all you really did was cook, peppers and some beef, and it took 10 minutes. And now you can make some steak and cheese subs for your entire family. And that's a fun one that you can make. So people might not, think on those routes either.
The bottom line is, even in a really stressful situation, there are really easy ways to
Yes.
find what you need, the
Mhm.
tools, the ingredients, and create meals so you remain nourished and strong for whatever's ahead of you.
You can pull off matzo ball soup in a hotel. You could make matzo balls right in a hotel, especially if it has a fridge, so you can let that matzah sit for 15 minutes before you form them. It's one of my favorite soups, but that would be a great one because you can buy it in a box form. It's an easy mix in one bowl, and then you could do that in a plug-in skillet or a crock pot. And what a nourishing, comforting meal that would be during a tough time.
Thank you so much,
You're
Susie, for
welcome.
all of these wonderful tips. Where can people learn more about you?
People can learn more about me at hippypilgrim.com. It's HIPPY, the word pilgrim.com. They can also add us on their social media. We are at Hippy Pilgrim on Facebook and TikTok, and we are at Hippy Pilgrim Garlic Salt on Instagram. And I'll also share the Hippy Pilgrim Helpline number. This is a phone number that anyone can call, even those folks that are sitting in a hotel room right now in LA or hunkering down with family 7 nights a week from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll take any kitchen or cooking related question under the sun. And I love, the old fashioned medium of a telephone call. That phone number is 781-291-0264, and it's called the Hippy Pilgrim Helpline.
So it's basically dial a Jewish mother helpline.
Totally. And I never realized, when I started this, how many people said, I don't have a grandparent anymore or that go-to person in my family. My Gigi is not around anymore and I can't ask them these questions, or I never got the recipes before they passed, or, I even had, one woman say I was raised in the foster care system and I never had anyone in this department. I'm kind of the anti Martha. Martha Stewart built her empire on perfection, and, Hippie Pilgrim's empire is built on imperfection and embracing the fears and, don't be afraid to fail in the kitchen. The fact that you're in it and attempting to pull off a meal to me is the hugest success. I welcome the calls. I just love it. I love we talked earlier about having talents and treasures, and this is one that I want to share with the rest of the world because I think in a different way. And this is my little skill and talent related to food that can help the larger collective in any scenario in life and any stage of their life.
Well, you certainly came in handy today. So
Aw.
thank you,
Oh,
Susie
you're
Sapir.
welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. You can subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or your favorite podcast platform. And if you go to jewishjournal.com/podcast, you can read the article that goes with this episode and get a surprise, easy recipe that you could cook from anywhere. And you can learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay fed, and bon appetit.